Welcome to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers. The mission to help CEOs and startups succeed in today's marketplace. Entrepreneur or established CEO, is your business growing? Where's your business going? Let's talk about it with your host, Dean Akers.
Welcome to the CEO Hour. I'm your host, Dean Akers, and each week we bring you top CEOs and entrepreneurs that want to share their journeys and thoughts and ideas that have helped their success, and obviously things that they hope they never do again or things they've learned on the way not to do again. Today, I'd like to welcome John Jaeb, President of Quest Capital. How are you doing, John?
I'm doing great, Dean. Thank you.
Well, John, each week we have a CEO on or a business owner on, and our listeners love to hear the whole journey, because what happens is when people meet us and we're successful in our today life, everybody just thinks we were an overnight success. And as you know, you've worked through a lot, and so let's kind of take it back from the beginning. And the beginning, for our listeners, was in January of 1960.
That's correct. Yeah, I'm surprised you know my birthday.
Well, I've never missed your birthday, have I? I've sent you a card for the last 20 years.
You have, but I figured using technology to get that done.
No.
But thank you, Dean. That's very, very thoughtful that you know that. That's correct. And I was born out of the eastern part of the county, and back then it was Sefner, Mango. It was all unincorporated part of the county. They might call it Brandon now. But my father and mother were entrepreneurs. They started a company in the convenience store business called Shop and Go, and they were true hands-on entrepreneurs. Built the business, really understanding the value of people and the value of people, and finding the right people to help them build the business right from the beginning. They had that vision, and they were very successful.
So they really kind of built the framework around putting great people in place and taking care of their people and let them help grow their business.
Absolutely.
And they grew that business. That was no mom and pop business.
No, I mean, it started out as a mom and pop business and became a very large publicly owned company. At the time, it was a very large company in this market.
How many locations did they have?
They had 450 locations.
450?
In Florida and in Georgia.
How many employees?
About 2,500.
Yeah, so they really got the people business.
They did. They understood that.
And was that a big deal they hammered to you while you were growing up, or did you just kind of morph into learning it?
It is more observation on my part. I don't think they really coached me to get in that business. They never really talked about that much. But of course, listening to dinner table conversation and just paying attention to what was going on, you quickly learned, understood why they were successful. And it was clearly a people. They had good ideas and vision, but they were really good at managing and selecting and taking care of their people.
If you had to remember one thing about your mom and dad that really sticks with their ability to motivate and drive their business through people, what would be one or two of the big takeaways that you got from them?
Well, I mean, they were very hard workers, so they set a really good example. They were hardworking people. And they had a lot of integrity, and they worked hard side by side with people. They treated everybody the same. It didn't matter whether you were scrubbing the floors or you were running some business. They treated every person the same, and I think people gravitated to them and liked them for all those reasons.
When they took their company public, was that a big transition for them?
It was on the NASDAQ exchange. So back then it was called just OTC, the OTC, but NASDAQ ran that exchange. It really wasn't that big of a change because they didn't raise a whole lot of capital. It was really, I think, more for them a way to get some liquidity in the future and not have all their eggs tied up in one basket. At that point, they were starting to get older when they decided to go public. But
when they decided to do that, how old were you?
So when they decided to go public, I guess I was 11 at that point.
So you were a young man. You really didn't know what was going on.
I didn't know what was going on.
Have they ever shared that? Because we've had other guests on the show that have taken companies public. Did they ever share with you, obviously the liquidity side, did they ever share the challenges with being a public truck?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they certainly shared the misgivings of being public. The fact that you have a lot more administrative overhead. You've got to hire lawyers that are schooled in dealing with the SEC. You've got to hire, higher level accounting firms to do your audit. You get a lot more scrutiny and you got a lot more administrative costs. And they used to talk about that, maybe we shouldn't have done it because of all this additional administrative costs we didn't have before and all this additional scrutiny. But I think it satisfied their objectives overall.
Well, you and I, when we first met, you were just finishing up your transaction with your chain of convenience stores.
Correct.
Did you get all that knowledge from them, or was it something they helped you start?
Well, I mean, I certainly worked in the business. My brother and I both did before they sold the company. So we had some knowledge from that, but they helped me to the extent that they gave my brother and I some seed capital, and then we had to go borrow the rest of the money from a bank, and then so the seed capital gave us a head start. Without that, it would have been probably gave us a 10 or 20 year head start having seed capital. But still, we had to go and take it from there. I mean, we could have easily failed, and we nearly did fail a few times. It's tough, but we learned a lot from them, and it helped us give us a head start. Let's put it that way.
So your brother was your partner?
My brother was my partner initially. That's correct.
So it's interesting. You shared you had ups and downs there. What were some of the sleepless nights that you experienced in growing that business?
Well, I mean, I would say a lot of the ups and downs really were more due to the fact that I just didn't have a lot of actual experience. I mean, you got to remember, I was a fairly young man trying to build this business, and I made a lot of mistakes just because I didn't know any better.
But I got to stop you there.
Yeah.
Because that's what our listeners, there's nobody. We've had people on the show that are like you. They didn't fall out of the womb knowing everything to do in their business. Correct. What are some of those things you learned along the way that you'd want our listeners to say, hey, when I didn't know everything, but boy, I really didn't know this, or this would have been something I wished I could have learned, or could you really have learned it any other way than through experience?
Well, I think sometimes you have to learn through experience. I mean, my initial idea was that you could build a business by going around and looking at what the better operators are doing and basically trying to copy what they did. But the problem with that is they're dynamic. They're constantly changing. Because they're innovative organizations, yeah, you can copy them today, but they're going to change tomorrow. And so now your copy is old. So what I learned is that you have to learn to think differently. And so you can go to other companies that are good operators, that aren't competitors of yours, you're not violating any antitrust laws. You can say, hey, let me understand how you think and why you run your business the way you do, not what you do, but why. And if you can learn to think like they think, now you've got something that you can really build on.
So when you're trying to figure out the why, were you able to get some whys? I
got a lot of whys. I mean, initially I didn't realize there were whys. I was still looking at the what, and then at some point the light went on, and I said, really, the why is what really matters. And how they think about their business and how they approach it was transformative for me. Once I figured out that's what I need to look at, the whys.
So give our listeners an example of a why.
Well, okay, so I found an operator that operated out in the West, the Midwest, and I noticed that they paid their employees. I thought I was paying my people a lot. I realized, if you're going to hire better people, you can't pay at the bottom of the barrel. You've got to be competitive, or even if your strategy is to pay more, then you can pay more. And I found that these guys were paying a lot more than their competition, a lot more, and they were offering a lot better benefits. And at first, I found that kind of odd. And I thought, how can they afford to do this? And the more I dug into it, the more I realized that the way they ran their business, they were so much more efficient. So they basically were using, at that point, didn't have the kind of technology you have today, but they were using really superb operational management techniques to drive efficiency, which means they need fewer people, and the people they have, they can pay more.
And the people they have do more.
And the people they have do a lot more.
So exactly. If you had one great person, it was better than having 2.5.
Exactly.
So that was a why. You mentioned something. You mentioned something that they were in another marketplace. Was that part of your going to see a peer and them telling you, "Hey, this is the why"?
Yeah.
And they opened up with you.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I even and I would encourage your listeners, if you can do this, if you can find companies that are in your industry, people you trust that don't compete with you, so you're not violating any competition laws or any antitrust laws. somebody in Michigan, let's say, you can go and set up your own little information exchange with them and learn about how they do business. And that's essentially what we did. We set up an operational information exchange, and we even we brought in an outside consultant to put together all the data, and we'd have a 2 or 3 day meeting and talk about every issue in the business.
What's funny, on my other podcast I do every week, which is about a 10-minute rant.
Yeah.
This week was about one of the 3 ways that the opportunities are right under your nose. Yeah. And one of them was peer group exchanges.
Yes.
Where you go and you find it's not about selling each other. You find a peer in your marketplace that in another market that you can go meet on an annual basis. So we're going to come back to that in segment 2. And I just want to remind our listeners out there about the CEO physical we do. That's a $10,000 value. Our adjunct CEOs will look at that after you fill it out and really give you good advice. It's absolutely free for listening to the show, and it's help@adjunctceo.com, help@adjunctceo.com, and it's just a great value. And if you want to take it, it'll address some of the stuff John's going to be sharing today. So we'll see you in segment 2.
The CEO Hour with your host, Dean Akers, will be right back. Connect at deanakers.com. So, you're a tech startup. You're working hard, trying to make it happen with big ideas, big dreams, and a small budget. You need to connect with people in the same boat. Now is the time to join the early stage startup group, the Innovation Center, an incubator for early stage tech firms. You can find them at tbinnovates.com. Now operating for over 14 years, the Innovation Center is a regional, national, and internationally known success story, continuing to generate momentum in Pinellas County. Twice, the Innovation Center has won the Tampa Bay Technology Forum's Excellence in Service Award and has been recognized by Entrepreneur.com as a top 10 international business incubator. And now, Tech Garage, a technology and entrepreneurship center, has joined forces with the Innovation Center to provide a co-working program in downtown St. Petersburg. Connect with the startup community. Connect with the Innovation Center. Go to tbinnovates.com. That's tbinnovates.com. And tell them the Adjunct CEO sent you.
If you're a CEO or organizational leader looking to expand your business, join the CEO Council, where you'll meet and exchange ideas with fellow CEOs without the pressures of a sales network environment. You can join today by sending an email to application@adjunctceo.com. The CEO Council is comprised of over 220 fantastic local business leaders you'll be able to learn from because they walk in your shoes every day. When you become a member of the CEO Council, you'll have an opportunity to build trusted relationships during the roundtable meetings, share your triumphs, vet ideas, and work through business challenges with peers who can provide real-world business solutions. The CEO Council offers opportunities to hear from world-renowned speakers that inspire ideas to help members grow as both leaders and individuals. Join the CEO Council. Request your CEO Council membership application today at adjunctceo.com or by sending email to application@adjunctceo.com. That's application@adjunctceo.com.
Welcome back to the CEO Hour, helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Connect at deanakers.com. And now your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to segment 2 of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top CEOs and entrepreneurs each week, sharing their journeys with both the thoughts and ideas for their success and things that they obviously wish they didn't want to do again. Today's guest, John Jaeb, is sharing some of his real thoughts, and at the break we went into ideas he had of mentor or peer groups. John, share more about that.
The peer group work was probably the single most important thing that I ever did in my business career when I was in the
Can I stop you right there?
Yes.
Would you say that one more time so everybody hears that?
The peer group work that we did, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but the way we did it and the fact that we did it and followed through on it and did it annually for about 10 or 15 years was the single most important thing I did in terms of being successful in business. Single most important thing.
Can now our listeners out there, how many of those of our listeners out there are driving down the road right now going, but I don't have time? Your thing would be, you don't have time to not do it. Would that be?
I would say you don't have time to not do it. I initially, look, I was skeptical too. I was invited to join one of these groups, and that was my first reaction: is I don't have time. I'm busy. We don't have a spare moment. But I quickly realized that our business is not really doing that well. I mean, we're just basically getting by, and we're not growing the business, and we're not making the kind of money we need to be making. And so at that point, I said, I really have to do it. I have to do it.
So that was a defining moment in your career.
It really was. It really was. No doubt.
And you were sharing that you met some in those groups and being involved in that kind of thing. You were sharing at the break when we were talking during the break that the benefit wasn't just they were peers in intellect to you. You actually had people in there that were much different than just peers to you.
Oh, much different. Yeah. They were, I mean, I like to say in my humble way, they were much smarter than I am, but they just thought differently than I thought. They had a different view of the business that allowed them to see things that I just was completely missing. I had blinders on.
Well, you've probably heard the story about you can take one genius, put him in a room, and take 10 average people, put them in a room with the same set of problems, and the 10 average people will always come out with a solution because they're collaborating and brainstorming versus the one person that's filtered.
Correct.
So that had to be some of the benefits.
There's no doubt about that.
So now you and your brother, what are some of the other challenges that you guys were facing where you kind of got one day looked in the mirror and go, why did I do this?
Well, we were always, because of the way we financed the business, we always had a lot of debt, and we used leases on real estate to finance new locations as well. So we were always levered up, whether it was all on balance sheet or not, we always had a lot of leverage. So we were always stretched from a balance sheet standpoint. And then in the early 90s, the economy, 1991, the economy got hit pretty hard. And this was pretty early on for us. And the economy got hit pretty hard. And we started losing money. We started having money-losing quarters. And we had about, I'd say, a year and a half, 2 years of trying to get our financial house in order, to get bank loans refinanced, and to get our cash flow positive again. It was a lot of sleepless nights.
Well, I got a question, because you were in the convenience store business,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And isn't that business, I used to, now this is just me being stupid,
Sure.
not any knowledge, but wasn't that a business that was almost kind of like a necessity for people?
Great question. And to some degree, absolutely. The problem is when the recession hit, it's about the same time, remember, the first Gulf War hit, and oil prices spiked significantly. So our margins on gasoline, which over a long period of time, they're decent. They're anywhere between 5 to 8 or 9 cents a gallon, let's say. They basically went to zero. So an entire product category for us went to zero margin during the Gulf War, and that just collapsed our earnings.
Well, and back then, the gas was a driver for your business, right?
Gas was a driver. It was also a profit center, though, too. Remember, the margins are much lower in gas than on the merchandise you sell inside the store, but it's a big volume. So GP dollar-wise, it was becoming equal, if not greater, than the inside business.
So now you're zero margin on your gas. You're staring at your brother. What do you do?
A lot of sleepless nights. We had real estate that we'd had in our contract and were acquired to build future locations. We hired an auction company to sell off every possible piece of real estate that was not employed earning income at that point, that was excess real estate or future development property. I engaged in sale leaseback transactions to sell existing stores and lease them back, the ones that already weren't sold and leased back. Because really, there's no reason to own real estate. If you're a business operator, you can rent it. So we did all kinds of things to raise cash.
I want you to share that because we did this too in one of my businesses, and it was a big deal. A lot of people in small businesses think you want to own your real estate. It really screws your balance sheet up. It doesn't help you when you go to exit your business. They're really looking at EBITDA, and they really don't look at the asset of real estate as a big value. In fact, it really kind of impacts you, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Dean. I would say that, first of all, if it's not your main business, if real estate is not your main business, then if you're another business and real estate is incidental, you have to have it to operate your business, I think you're better off to lease. why tie up assets and why tie up capital in something that's not part of your core business? So if it's not core to what you do, I think you're better off to lease. It gives you more financial flexibility. And to your point, when you go to sell your business, most people are going to value your business on a multiple of sales or multiple of EBITDA or some metric like that. And to your point, if you own real estate, that's going to be sort of a separate valuation. So you get the EBITDA piece or this multiple sales valuation, and then the real estate is sort of looked at separately. You're not going to get credit for owning that real estate in your EBITDA or sales multiple calculation.
Well, and one of the things, and you're a smart business guy now, so everything's fluid for you to converse about this. But share with our visitors a little bit more about what you're talking about, where you're ending up taking capital. And I know exactly what you're talking about, but I know a lot of the small entrepreneurs out there don't understand that when you borrow to buy a piece of real estate, you're using part of your borrowing capacity versus borrowing it for inventory or
correct
or something else. Explain that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. To the extent you borrow money because you think, hey, I want to be prudent and own this real estate for my business because it goes up in value and it's sort of like owning a piece of the rock, if you will. I'm owning something tangible. It does use up part of your borrowing capacity, borrowing and debt that you may need in order to expand or grow or move your business forward. So in some ways, it really ties your hands. So whether it's your own capital or whether it's borrowings that you have to use to buy real estate, I think you're better off to use that in your core business. Dean, does that help?
Yeah, that's it. And I hope that message gets driven home because
if it's not core, let's say if whatever you're doing is not core to what you do, then you're almost better off to consider not owning that real estate. Or it's just like someone might view outsourcing. If I've got a business and I've got all kinds of different needs for my business, but if something's not core to what I do to my business, maybe I should outsource that. So think about it that way. I'm outsourcing the real estate and I'm leasing it because I don't really need to own it.
And so many small entrepreneurs think they've got to do everything, touch all the knobs.
And maybe initially you do. When you're really small, when you're just starting out, you really kind of pretty much have to live there and do all of that. But if you're ever going to grow it, you got to start thinking differently, and you got to be thinking about what's core and what's really important to your business, and what's your business strategy moving forward, or you'll always be the guy that's doing everything, or the
so
girl that's doing
when did that revelation really hit you?
Well, I mean, right from the beginning. I mean, because I watched my parents. I had the advantage of watching them and watch how they hired and groomed and taught people and relied on people, delegated to people. Yeah, so I learned very quickly to be a delegator and to realize that you can't do everything yourself. If you do, you're not gonna grow.
So how many locations did you have when the recession hit? The 90s?
Probably about 75, something like that, when the recession hit. Yeah.
So you were already a pretty big player.
Yeah, I was a decent sized company, right?
And now this gas deal in the Gulf War really kind of. What other things were keeping you awake at night?
Well, the gas, the Gulf War, the recession. And remember, to your point earlier, we were not that recession resistant, but look. Every business, even the convenience store gas station, you're a little bit recession affected. So what happens then is, between the recession and the Gulf War, that's probably the most sleepless nights I ever had in business. Other things that kept me awake at night, you always worry about the impact of government regulation. Remember, we sold a lot of products that were highly regulated. And, while everybody's afraid of government regulation, we always manage to find a way to manage around it or deal with it and incorporate it into our operation. So it was never anything that really adversely affected us, even though initially we always thought, hey, this new regulation is going to be very negative for us. Businesses are very adaptable, and we learn to adapt.
Well, when we come back into segment 3, we're going to want to hear some more of the whys you learned, and then we want to obviously expand on the government regulation impacts and stuff, because I think that a lot of people, I was just in a conversation with somebody earlier about the government and all this stuff and how it impacts them in their business, and quite frankly, I found that they impact it bigger than the government, but we'll talk about it in segment 3. Again, this is Dean Akers, your host of the CEO Hour. We're here today with John Jaeb. He's sharing his wonderful journey, and we'll see you in segment 3.
helping established CEOs and entrepreneurs. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Connect with Dean Akers at deanakers.com. Welcome back to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers. Connect at deanakers.com. And now your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to segment 3 of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, bringing you top entrepreneurs and CEOs each week that share their journeys, both is sharing their thoughts and ideas that helped them be successful, and then things they wish they didn't or wouldn't want to do again. Today we have John Jaeb, who is a mega success. I've known John for years, and he's really imparting some great wisdom out there on the airwaves to all you folks listening today, and we want to talk more about the whys. So John, bring us into some more whys that you found that have driven you for the last 30 years.
Well, why? I'd say the other thing I really want to talk a lot about is building a business around the customer, and everybody says that. So one of the things I had to do, because I competed with a lot of well-capitalized companies that had much more resources than we had in terms of capital and the ability to do things we couldn't dream of doing. So we had to figure out, do a strength and weakness analysis of our company and say, what can we do that they can't do or won't do? What can we do as a business? And we decided that we were going to build our business around the customer, and we were going to create definable, measurable customer experience metrics that we could actually train on, pay incentives on, that were tangible, that were real. Not just lip service, but real and measurable. That was really transformative for us because we knew our competitors wouldn't do it. They're more focused on, writing big checks, big capital. They don't really want to spend a lot of time on really working and developing their human resource and developing their training programs to fit a strategy. And we did that because we figured that was a defendable niche that we could own. And believe me, we owned it. And we were rewarded well. Moving forward a few years from that, we were running nice double-digit sales, same-store sales increases for a number of years subsequent to getting that fully implemented. It wasn't easy to do. It was really one of the hardest things that we ever did.
Okay, but that's. Let me ask you specifically. So you're in the convenience store business.
Correct.
So we all have our stereotypes.
Right.
Tell me some of the specifics that you felt and your team felt that would differentiate yourself in the convenience store industry to all these, quote, mega big businesses that you were competing against.
Well, I mean, it really kind of starts, it started when you pulled up to the gas pump. I mean, was it clean? Back then we used to use the intercom system to greet people as they arrived. Welcome to Pickwick. The pump's on for a fill-up for you. This is before card readers were universal. They were around, but they weren't universally used. So we took every opportunity possible to greet the customer, to engage with them, employee to customer, both at the gas pump as well as in the store. We made sure that our employees, we had grooming standards. They had to wear a uniform. We had specific grooming standards, similar to like Disney World has grooming standards. If you work at Disney World, or you go to Disney World, you'll see that they have grooming standards for their employees. So we wanted people to feel comfortable. We wanted we wanted to engage with our customers. And we also had to measure that too, so we'd have to hire mystery shoppers to go in and measure all of these factors. Otherwise, they weren't going to happen. We also had to bonus and incent people to do it as well.
So I was in the retail business a while back, and I totally agree with the mystery shoppers.
Yeah.
For the entrepreneurs out there listening, how many of them really, how important is it to really deep dive? Well, I'm trying to think of the right way it says. I can sit with 100 people and say, tell me about your company, and they all say they have great service.
Right.
I've never had somebody, John, say, listen, we're specialized in giving crappy service.
Right.
So how do you with the measurements, then how do you take this industry you're in, and what kind of training is involved? What all led to creating this person that could engage in the way you're sharing?
Well, what led to it, it really starts. Let's walk through it. First of all, you've got to hire a little better people than your competition. So you have to pay a little more, offer overall better benefits package. You've got to have a better hook to get them in the door. You have to spend a lot more money on training on them than your competitor. Frankly, that's all the more reason why you want to pay a little more and hire a little better people, because you don't want to turn them over. Because once you train them, you've now invested a lot of money and you do not want to turn them over. So you need to have a much lower turnover profile than your competition. So let's start with that. And you have to train them on exactly what you're trying to deliver. I mean, exactly on the mission in terms of what expectation do I have when we do these mystery shops, and I've got to train people to deliver on that every time. Every time they got to deliver on that. And so, it sounds easy conceptually, but it really is hard because, measuring it is hard. Coming up with the right metrics is hard. Coming up with an incentive plan that is effective, that works so that people actually do it is hard. And then training on it is hard. One of the things I had to do in the organization is, from a structure standpoint, is I elevated the human resource development training person to a senior level manager. They reported directly to me because I felt that training and our human resource was the most valuable thing we had. And so we had to do that right. You can't bury it in operations or some other part of the business.
So for our listeners out there, help them understand, kind of give them some material impact of I'm trying to think of the right question. Everybody says they train. If it's that important, how do you really get that up top if you're an entrepreneur and they're out there going, we need to train? What measurement should our listeners be trying to put in their businesses to make sure they're training?
Well, okay. Well, you got to measure it. So, nowadays, depending on your business, and it might vary depending on your business, you can use technology to do a lot of this now. Technology can give you a lot of data that on your customer and how satisfied they are or they aren't. Because we were a high transaction business and we weren't relationship sellers, we didn't really know who our customers were as individuals. We did millions of transactions, small transactions. So we had to use mystery shoppers. It was the only way we could collect data. Well, people probably think, well, that's really expensive. It's really not. I mean, it's not that expensive to hire mystery shoppers. And there are a lot of companies out there that you can outsource it to. And they know how to do it so that people don't pick up on the fact that they're a mystery shopper. And I think it's critical, though, that you do that if it fits your business model, that you do that and you get real data that you can actually look at and say, here's why we're actually delivering on our customer service pledge. I've got real data to back it up. Otherwise, it's just a good talking point, and you really don't know if it's really happening or not. Everybody says that it feels good, but if you don't measure it, it's not going to happen.
So if they don't have a line item for mystery shopping, they're probably missing out.
They're probably missing out. Yeah.
I got to tell you this. I had the blessing to go to San Antonio this year to speak to the I was the keynote speaker at the International Conference of Mystery Shoppers.
Oh, my gosh.
It was like hundreds of mystery shoppers, and I can promise you, you could never, ever know they were a mystery shopper.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I bet you learned a lot too, right?
Oh, yeah. My goodness. The stories, sitting around the bar, because I'm intrigued by it, because I believe in it.
Yeah.
And the stories. And then they shared something I think you're trying to impart to our listeners. People aren't really doing it, and they need to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people generally aren't doing it, and you need to. And it's hard. To get people from not doing it to doing it is a heavy lift.
So I've worked with companies, and one of the biggest challenges I find with mystery shoppers for the company.
What's that?
When the CEO gets the data, he thinks they're lying.
Well, I would say that CEO needs to go out and go out where their customers are and see what's going on then.
It's kind of like, don't bring me the bad news.
Then you go on the field. Wherever their field is or wherever their point of contact with the customer is, that owner of that company needs to be there to checking on it because it's not happening.
Well, you mentioned at one of the breaks, Sam Walton. I met a buddy of mine that used to quail hunt with him, and Sam Walton had a Cessna 414, and he would fly without telling anybody where he was going himself and just show up at Walmarts in random places and secret shop them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I mean, it's important. Every successful retail CEO I've ever known, and I've known a lot, they all spend a lot of time in the field, every one of them. They spent very little time in the office and most of their time visiting their stores.
So if you're a listener out there, and of course John had 75 locations. So in your 75 locations, we'll talk at the fourth and final segment. But you weren't, your locations weren't all within 5 mile radius, were they?
No, they weren't. They were as far away as 160 miles. Right?
Yeah. So you really had a lot of stuff to secret shop and stay on top of. So as we go to the fourth and final segment, I still want to remind everybody about the free offer of the CEO Physical. We get tons of people that email us, and we get them out, and the feedback has been enormous as to how it's helped their business. Back to John's point about secret shopping, doing a physical is really taking your kind of vetting yourself and putting yourself out there, because these questions are pretty dynamic and they're pretty revealing. So again, it's help@adjunctceo.com, help@adjunctceo.com. That's a $10,000 value. It's absolutely free because you're listening to the radio show. And to John's point, as you become more transparent with yourself, whether it's secret shopping or having a consultant come in and really take you apart, it's going to make a big difference in your success. And John, I know as we go into segment 4, I'll share a couple more tips to help all of you out there that are listening. But I got to tell you, it's really about execution, and he's just reiterated that on steroids. So we'll talk to you in segment 4. Hang in there. We'll be right back.
Success never takes the weekend off. The CEO Hour continues in a moment. Growth begins by understanding where you are now. For a limited time, business growth experts at Adjunct CEO will provide a full CEO physical of your business valued at $10,000 for free. Email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. This offer includes financial, marketing, and sales analysis and an outline to help you strategize future success. For your free CEO physical, email ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. ceophysical@adjunctceo.com. Florida ranks high as a new hub for business growth and innovation. Startups, restarts, and starting over are all part of the new vitality generated as geography and economic opportunity collide. As Florida's entrepreneurial ecosystem grows, many are using Synapse to grow their business. Synapse is a groundbreaking methodology that connects all personas within the innovation economy, utilizing a method that enables all users to progress in meeting their given needs while promoting much-needed community engagement. Never more than now has Florida presented opportunity to be better aligned in business, providing huge potential for greater overall results with strong collaboration and holistic leadership. Synapse is a growth synthesis platform that will allow you to take advantage and flourish in ways you never thought possible as an entrepreneur, as a business, and within the context of community, events, connections, publishing, all with Synapse. See for yourself at synapsefl.com. That's synapsefl.com. Welcome back to the CEO Hour, helping your business succeed in today's marketplace. Connect at deanakers.com. And now your host, Dean Akers.
Well, welcome back to segment 4 of the CEO Hour. Again, I'm your host, Dean Akers, as we bring you each week top CEOs and entrepreneurs that share their journey. This week, we have John Jaeb, the CEO of Quest Capital, and he has given us some really, really good information in the first 2 segments. And in this final segment, he's going to really bring it home with ideas that have helped him be so successful. And quite frankly, as an investor today, he's looking at your companies and he wants to see if you're executing, and he's advising you on what to do to be his successful. John, so tell us a couple more whys, and then now how you develop that into your private equity company.
Well, okay. So what do I look at when I look at companies? And of course, my favorite company is management buyout. So I like companies where the owner, there's a transition where the owner wants to sell the business. The people running it with the owner want to buy it, but they need capital. So in the ideal scenario, they'll put money in. The management does. So they have downside risk and upside. And then we'll put money in. And I love those opportunities because the business is already successful. The operator becomes the owner, and the first owner exits, and you can really grow a company significantly that way, and do it on a fairly low risk basis.
Yeah, so you find that the operators, it's kind of like the old E-Myth. Once you have the founder out, right, you've got good operators. You can deploy some of your strategies you've learned.
You can, right? That's right. So when I look for in investments, I mean, obviously you want an operator or whether it's owner operator, whether you're going to back them or whether it's going to be managed by either way, you want an owner operator that is really committed to the business, very committed, and that doesn't have a lot of hobbies that take up a lot of time, that they're really focused on business. You want an industry where they have a definable moat, something that's unique about the business, and that's different than their competition. Because look, every industry has competitors, so you really got to have something that's a little bit different that you can define, that you can defend, so you can continue to be successful. So that your business doesn't become a commodity like the rest of the industry. So those are the things I think that are really the most important.
Well, let me ask you this. I would say what you shared in, I think, segment 2, you were in what I'd call the granddaddy of commodity businesses.
It was.
The convenience store business.
Right. Low margin. Right. It was. It was very much a commodity business. Low margin.
But what you did is you took a deep breath through your mentoring or going around and meeting people, right, and said, how can I differentiate? And,
correct.
And how did you differentiate?
Well, that's it. We differentiated by deciding that we were going to deliver on a customer service experience that we felt that our competition couldn't do or wouldn't do.
So no matter what business you get in, you've got to come up with that differentiation.
Absolutely.
And it could be in even a commodity business.
It could be. Oh, you can absolutely be successful in a commodity business.
Does it make it any more riskier in a commodity business?
If you have a definable strategy that you can defend, that's different and unique, no. I think it's no more risky than a non-commodity business. Right?
So when you're meeting entrepreneurs, how often do they pitch you?
Pretty often. I mean, when you say how often they pitch me, what do you mean
if you saw 100 deals, how many would you close on?
Well, I don't have that kind of deal flow. So, I don't have that kind of deal flow. I'm not a private equity operator that has a significant deal flow. I do my stuff more on relationships and networking. So it's a much smaller deal flow. So I close very few deals because I'm not raising money from outside investors or anything like that, just purely my own from my own account. So I'm not as aggressive as someone who's going to go raise money and have significant deal flow.
But when you're still looking at a deal, forget deal flow, what are the three biggest criteria you look for?
Well, I mean, does the owner-operator really understand and know that business? Do they have committed capital in the business, whether it's sweat equity or whether it's money they put in? But have they earned their position in that business? And is it a business with a definable strategy? A defendable strategy, I should say, and definable, both.
So with your experience with the whys, and you meet these people or entrepreneurs, even if you're just trying to help them, where do you really focus, and what are some of the things you do to really discover the whys for them?
Well, you just interview them and try to understand, ask them open-ended questions so you can understand and let them talk about their business and how they go to market. You learn very quickly the guys and girls know what they're doing and the people that are still struggling.
Do you ever find, though, that your experience with asking the whys helps stimulate them, though?
Absolutely. Look, I think anytime that anyone, I've talked to business people about this, anytime they interview investors and or would-be investors in their business, they learn a lot from them. They learn a lot. It's helpful to them. And I always feel that way. If I talk to somebody, whether I never invest in the business, I feel like I try to leave them with some idea or some thought or some direction that might help them.
Well, I don't know if you would concur with this, but a pretty wise man taught me this years ago. But I would go out and act like I was raising capital just to get vetted by guys like you.
There you go. That's good. I like that.
What they would do is they would put the whys to me.
Yeah.
And in a conversation, actually with our company Ideal Image, we went on a road trip to meet all these private equity guys, and we weren't really trying to raise capital. I mean, we had raised some through one of my vendors and stuff,
right?
But we were really trying to get what they thought we should look like and what they and out of doing that, we ended up getting 6 private equity groups to get more than interested.
Yes.
To where we got actually a what do you call it, a auction process or a bidding process,
right?
And our intent was not to do that.
Yeah, well, that was smart strategy there because it worked. If you get an auction process going, you've done a really good job of positioning your company.
And to our listeners out there, back to your whys and what you found with your peer groups, do you find sometimes if somebody reaches out to you and has lunch with you, or somebody like yourself, and you go through kind of a vetting of them, not so much to put capital in, but they're really looking for ideas, that you can usually get them to get a gotcha moment?
Absolutely.
So our listeners out there, if you're buried in the minutia right now, if you're going 100 miles an hour and you don't have time, first off, you need to probably read the book E-Myth.
Yeah.
And then you need to be reaching out to people like John or your types of peers so you guys can vet them and give them good ideas.
Yes, that's right. Or read what's the book? First Ask Why. There's another book, a great book. First Ask Why, which is really good. The other thing is leave your place of business and go visit one of your competitors. Just leave your place and go visit one of your competitors. Spend a few minutes there and look around, see what they're doing, whatever that business is.
I would bet the litmus test on that is if you took 100 CEOs of small business or owners of small business and asked them last time they secret shopped their own competitors, it'd be almost zero.
Yeah, it needs to be. It needs to be almost all of them doing it. 100%. You need to be doing that. It's critical. I mean, and you go in there without an agenda. You're just going in and just observing what they're doing, and you might walk away with an idea. If nothing else, it gets you out of your minutia.
Yeah. So any other, as we come close to the fourth and final segment, is there any other wisdom with your experiences that our listeners could gain from you today that's a gotcha for you?
I would just leave people with the thought that, look, if you believe in what you're doing and you believe that you've got a business that you can grow, times get tough. I mean, there are tough times for everyone, and we all make mistakes. But if you really still believe after you've made mistakes and you've had the setbacks that the business is still good, stick with it. Work hard, stick with it. If you can come up with a way to make yourself different from your competition that's recognizable to your customer, you might have a winner.
So again, you're telling our listeners, stay focused.
Stay focused.
When in doubt, stay focused.
Stay focused. Yeah, stay focused.
And
to your point earlier, step out of the minutia. Get out of the day-to-day minutia and get your head above water so you can take a fresh look at what's going on.
So, John, today you've shared some really, really, really good tidbits. One is get to the why. The other one is definitely find an industry peer group. Would that be one of your big takeaways?
Absolutely. Critical.
And then also you definitely want to even shop your competition.
Shop your competition.
And how often should you do that?
Every week.
Yeah, all the time.
Every week. Not every day.
Yeah, and what you want to do is learn and break through. I've written the book Self-Talk, Think Like a Child, and what you shared today is really the process of eliminating self-talk and really understanding that you can be successful if you spend the time. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
And I got to commend you because you make it sound so easy. However, you were in the toughest business on the planet. You grew that and you had a mega successful exit.
Yeah, it is not easy. I'm sorry if I make it seem easy. I'm trying to explain it so that people can understand it and make sense to them. They can connect with it, but it's anything but easy, as you know. It requires a lot of commitment. and a lot of hard work, and you got to stay focused.
Well, again, John, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. There's no question you've given us the value that we look for every week for our listeners. So this is Dean Akers, your host of the CEO Hour, and we'll see you next week.
You've been listening to the CEO Hour with Dean Akers, helping businesses and CEOs succeed in today's marketplace. Receive a free CEO physical when you connect with Dean at deanakers.com. That's deanakers.com. Join us again next week for the CEO Hour with Dean Akers.